Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett. I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on the John Campea YouTube channel. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it? Especially if you love the movies.
Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your evangelist of the imagination, and finally, the as yet undefined, maybe ever undefined, existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, moi, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I am robcasting. Something in my beard. I am robcasting at you imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community, the most wonderful fan community in all of YouTube, hell, on all the interwebs. You're all welcome here, all of you, every one of you. And we're here to talk, discuss, exchange ideas and pleasantries. That's what this channel is all about. That's what the Burnettwork has always been all about. And that's what the Post-Geek Singularity exists to do. So here's the thing. I've been thinking a lot about our new AI world and how it will eventually affect every form of human creative endeavor. It can be a tool. It can replace us. There's all kinds of things. We don't know where it's all going to land. But I'm interested in it specifically more from a philosophical standpoint. Now, I have to say, I've been using a lot of Chat GPT, and it is a valuable tool. I have been using it. There's a screenplay I've wanted to write, that I've been noodling with for years. It's a horror screenplay. And basically what Chat GPT has allowed me to do, I have an outline for it. I know everything that happens in it. It's just the writing that's been a pain in the ass. So what I'll do is I'll write a paragraph, or I'll just transpose what I've already written into Chat GPT and play with that paragraph. Rewrite it in the form of, I'll use an author like, David Mamet, Patty Chayefsky, Stephen King, whatever. And I'll see what it does and take things I like. And then I'll even say, now put this in screenplay form. And it will. and it's interesting because if nothing else, it's allowing me to reflect back on what I've written and what I want to do and where I want to take it. And it's pretty fascinating the way it works. Now, it doesn't work without my prompting it. I have to tell it things. But the question is, am I really writing it? But it is a tool like any other tool. I don't know what it all means. I don't know where it's all going to wind up. I really don't know where it's going to take us. But I've been thinking about it a lot. And of course, everyone's been playing with different AI art programs. And the thing about AI art programs is, well, we're going to get into that. But if you're a conceptual artist for movies, I think all of us, we imagination connoisseurs, I bet over the course of our lifetimes, we've bought the Star Wars sketchbook by Ralph McQuarrie, or some kind of sci-fi art, sci-fi blueprints, whatever. And as you all know, a lot of conceptual artwork goes into the creation of various things. You look at what ILM did. Look at any ILM book. Look at any Art of Star Trek book. Look at the Art of the Lord of the Rings, or any of the Marvel books. The Art of, take your Marvel movie, and you can buy that book. And you can see all of the different art that was done for that film. Well, obviously, AI art based on the prompts you're going to give it is able to do some stunning material. It might not be as exacting because only a human being would know exactly what you want to do. But the potential is there. And like, let's say I just had an idea, like what if I wanted to make a 1685 steampunk village? A steampunk village circa 1685. What would that look like? You can punch it in and get an idea. Something will come back. It might not be exactly what you want. Then you start using prompts. Then you go to YouTube and figure out which prompts you need, rewrite things. But what it's doing is it's showing you things. You're immediately getting whatever you're conjuring up in your imagination. And I understand that AI art, it's mining everything on the internet. So it's taking literally every single piece of art or that humanity has produced that's on the internet and wherever algorithms are sending it, wherever it's going, and giving you back something. It's giving you something, which is what a conceptual artist would be paid to do. And it would take them hours to do it, probably. So obviously you can see right away that, and the artwork that you're getting back from AI is based on previously existing work that other people have done. And the legalities of all that, I don't presume to know. But it really got me thinking. I mean, it's still real. You're still getting back an image that probably didn't exist before you prompted that image. And what I don't understand is, let's say I saw some images today on our member chat of Brad Pitt as Captain Kirk. Pretty convincing. You know, I hadn't actually thought about that. But now here's the thing. If AI art, such as Brad Pitt as Captain Kirk, and there were like 4 different images, once AI creates that, are they stored on the web somewhere? And is this new amalgamation, mashup, call it what you want, who owns that? I mean, obviously it's Brad Pitt's likeness. Our member encouraged this mashup to happen. But who owns it? Does anyone own it? Do the owners of the AI company, OpenAI, whoever owns these, do they own them? So if you are spouting out, I mean, suddenly say somebody wants to buy a poster of Brad Pitt as Kirk, and you put that online. Are you going to get dinged by Brad Pitt's lawyers? Are you going to get dinged by the AI company's lawyers? Are you going to get dinged at all? Where does copyright fall? I don't know. These are all big questions. But the thing that's really obsessed me is some of you may have seen images of Alejandro Jodorowsky's Tron. Now, of course, Alejandro Jodorowsky, the filmmaker that made The Holy Mountain or El Topo or Santa Sangre, which, by the way, has a great 4K Blu-ray. If you're a Jodorowsky fan, you know that he famously was going to try and get Dune made. Before David Lynch did his version of Dune, Jodorowsky was going to do his version of Dune, and he created a huge book of all this artwork and all of his visions. There's even a documentary, Jodorowsky's Dune, where you can see a lot of this, and it's a great documentary. Steven Scarlatta was involved in it, who I know, about the unmade Jodorowsky's Dune. Well, somebody used AI, actually I'm going to read about who did it, and figured out, wouldn't it be interesting to see what Jodorowsky's Tron looks like? Now we have images of Jodorowsky's Tron. They exist. You can see them. Of course, there was never Jodorowsky's Tron. There was never going to be Jodorowsky's Tron. This was just a notion that was put into an AI art bot, call it what you want. And the question that I have, and I'll bring it up, but I want to read this article, this editorial that was in the New York Times last week about all of this. And I have to say, I've kind of been obsessing over it since I read it. And now I hope you're going to obsess over it too. So it's called This Film Does Not Exist. And as you can see, these are images, AI images from Jodorowsky's Dune. Pretty compelling imagery and really fascinating. So This is by Frank Pavich, and all of the images that you see are generated by Midjourney with Johnny Darrell. And Frank Pavich is the director of Jodorowsky's Dune, a documentary about the Chilean filmmaker Alejandro Jodorowsky's attempt to film a version of Dune in the mid-70s. Now, Frank Pavich, who made this documentary, is the author of this article. I was recently shown some frames from a film that I had never heard of, Alejandro Jodorowsky's 1976 version of Tron. The sets were incredible. The actors, unfamiliar to me, looked fantastic in their roles. The costumes and lighting worked together perfectly. The images glowed with an extravagant and psychedelic sensibility that felt distinctly Jodorowskian. However, Mr. Jodorowsky, the visionary Chilean filmmaker, never tried to make Tron. I'm not even sure he knows what Tron is. And Disney's original Tron was released in 1982. So what 1970s film were these gorgeous stills from? Who were these neon-suited actors? And how did I, the director of the documentary Jodorowsky's Dune, having spent 2.5 years interviewing and working with Alejandro to tell the story of his famously unfinished film, not know about this? And here is the still that I use for my thumbnail. I mean, pretty compelling stuff. The truth is that these weren't stills from a long-lost movie. They weren't photos at all. These evocative, well-composed, and tonally immaculate images were generated in seconds with the magic of artificial intelligence. During the filming of my documentary, Alejandro told me about the Greek-Armenian philosopher and mystic George, and I can't even pronounce his last name, Gurdjieff. He taught that we are born without a soul, and that our task in life is to help our soul to grow and develop. Souls aren't born, they're earned. Every single day, Alejandro creates. He writes, he draws, he paints. He works on his soul through art. Next month, he'll turn 94, and he's preparing to direct a new film. He's a man in perpetual creative motion. I first met Alejandro in 2010 when I approached him about filming a documentary on his mid-70s attempt to make a feature film version of Frank Herbert's sci-fi novel Dune. My interest wasn't in the story of the young noble Paul Atreides, the desert planet Arrakis, or the mind-altering spice called Milage. I wanted to find out why the mysterious and guru-like director chose to follow up his 1970 acid western El Topo, the very first Midnight movie, and 1973's scandalous and hallucinogenic The Holy Mountain, with an attempt to make the most colossal science fiction film of all time. Again, here's more images from Jodorowsky's Tron. You can see the Chris Foss influence in here. After adapting the novel into a screenplay, he worked for 2 years with a team of artists. His spiritual warriors, the British illustrator Chris Foss, who helped him design his striped spaceships, the Swiss artist H.R. Giger, whose dark style would help him create the home planet of the film's villains, the American special effects innovator Dan O'Bannon, and of course, Jean Giraud, France's greatest comic artist, who would help Alejandro design the costumes. That's Mobius, pardon me. As well as, Morbius is different. As well as draw the more than 3,000 storyboard sketches needed to visualize this epic tale. The cast would have included Mick Jagger, Orson Welles, Salvador Dali, and Alejandro's 12-year-old son Brontes in the lead role. The soundtrack would have been composed and recorded by Pink Floyd. He wanted Dune to be more than a movie. It was to be a prophet. It was to change the world. And it was not to be. You've never seen the film because it was never completed. Here's Alejandro Jodorowsky in 1969 during a visit to actor Dennis Hopper's house in Taos, New Mexico. The project ended once Alejandro presented his massive compendium of artwork to the Hollywood studios. They turned it down out of fear or short-sightedness, or simply because they could not comprehend what he was trying to do. Or maybe it was because he refused to submit to the practical limits of the 2-hour film, threatening that his Dune would be as long as 20 hours. He was never given the chance to shoot even a single frame of Dune. There's no unused footage that we can look at and dismiss because of campy acting or poor special effects. It will forever be the greatest film never made because it exists solely in our imaginations. Just because you cannot watch Alejandro's Dune doesn't mean it didn't change the world. This unfilmed film's influence on our culture is nothing short of astounding. Specific ideas and images from the Dune art Bible have escaped into the world. They can be experienced in movies such as Blade Runner, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Prometheus, The Terminator, and even the original Star Wars. His Dune does not exist, yet it's all around us. I mean, look at this. Again, these are AI-generated pieces of art. It took Alejandro and his team 2 years of pure analog struggle to create his Dune. Pencil on paper, paint on canvas, inventing the practical effects required to deliver his on-screen spectacle. It's different with AI. No struggle was involved in creating these images of Jodorowski's Tron. It didn't require any special skills or extensive direction from Johnny Darrell, the Canadian director who made these pictures with an AI program called Midjourney. A simple prompt is all it took. A few words, in this case, slight variations on production still from 1976 of Alejandro Jodorowsky's Tron, followed by under a minute of waiting, and a computer deep in the racks of a data center somewhere, sifting through the numbers encoded into its memory banks associated with the words Tron and Jodorowsky. Again, another amazing piece of work. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it all. There seems to be a correlation between how Alejandro's work was absorbed and referred to by subsequent filmmakers and how his work was ingested and metabolized by computer programming. But these two things are not the same. I want to say that influence is not the same thing as algorithm. But looking at these images, how can I be sure? It's hard to find many shortcomings in the software. It can't render text, and like many painters and sculptors throughout history, it has trouble getting hands right. I'm nitpicking here. The model contains multitudes. It has scanned the collected works of thousands upon thousands of photographers, painters, and cinematographers. It has a deep library of styles and a facility with all kinds of image-making techniques at its digital fingertips. The technology is jaw-dropping, and it concerns me greatly. Now, here's a pretty interesting chart about how artificial intelligence programs create image. And I'll read these captions. Machine learning. AI programs that generate images like Midjourney train on data sets of billions of images with descriptive text captions. They look at the relationship of each image to its caption, as well as similarities from image to image and description to description, building a compressed model that is able to associate from words to pictures. Then you have the generation, as we see here. The AI processes the text into concepts that it can recognize from its training. Orange flower in a teal pot. Pretty interesting. Then you have the image generator. The AI starts with random pixels. Using the text prompt for guidance, it removes noise from the image, in a manner of speaking, trying to find the face in the clouds. It runs this process dozens to hundreds of times, refining the image with each iteration. And in the end, a one-of-a-kind image is left, no matter how many times the same prompt is used. Insane. To what extent do these rapidly generated images contain creativity? And from what source is that creativity emerging? Has Alejandro been robbed? Is the training of this AI model the greatest art heist in history? How much of art making is theft anyway? On one hand, the software gives you a kind of turbocharged pastiche, but there's still some fresh splendor in that imitation. It's succeeding at one of filmmaking's main jobs, transporting you to another time, to another world. If AIs were eligible for the Academy Awards, I'd vote for Jodorowsky's Tron for Best AI Costume Design just for dreaming up such outrageous retro sci-fi hats and helmets. Here's another example. I mean, come on. This is pretty staggering. And I look at this personally, me personally, this is not the author. I look at this and I want to see this movie. And here's the thing that puts the zap on my head. I look at this and I know what this movie is. I know what it's about. It is now in my imagination. I now have visuals to go along with the idea of Jodorowski doing Tron, even though Tron came out in 1982, and Jodorowski, we don't even know if he knows what Tron is. But there it is, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle beings, kind souls, however you identify across the 28 known galaxies, there it sits. That movie might not actually exist. But the question I have for all of you is, does it matter? It does exist now. Jodorowsky's Tron has been given visual form that now exists and lives in my imagination. So the question I have for all of you who are watching is that, I mean, sure, it's not a real movie. You can't go buy a disc. You can't go watch it on streaming. But the idea of it exists, and it has been given visual form. If someone were to say to me, do you know what a Jodorowsky's Tron would look like? I can say, I do. You know, you can't take that idea away from me because it's right there. And we've been looking at them the whole time, these pictures as I've been reading. So that's the thing that's what has kept me awake at night. I'm thinking, does it matter? Like, if I want to create my own Disney Star Wars trilogy, that would have to be satisfying, more satisfying. Anything that AI could come up with would have to be more satisfying than the horrible swill that was The Rise of Skywalker. One of perhaps the greatest franchise betrayals and audience betrayals in entertainment history. How that movie got made, I will never know. But this exists now. So, it's as if Mr. Gurdjieff taught creation leads to the development of one's souls. If, as this gentleman said, as he taught, if creation leads to the development of one's soul, whose soul is being developed here? Nothing in this software seems controllable in the pixel-precise way artists use tools like Photoshop. When Mr. Darrell generated these images, he didn't choose the colors, the framing, or what the characters would be doing. He also didn't determine some of the other choices that the AI program assimilated from 1970s science fiction. The seemingly all-white cast, and the vintage gender roles. Whatever he might have had in his mind's eye was not what he was going to get. He needed to state his prompt cleanly and clearly. But the creativity bubbled out of the machine. In exploring more of Mr. Darrell's AI experimentation, I saw a still image. This is the best. Look at this. In exploring more of Mr. Darrell's AI experimentation, I saw some still images that he made for an occult motorcycle flick called The Snakes Are the Devil. They were incredible. So full of mystery and depth, I wanted to watch this movie. And as he said, this is Mid-Journey with Johnny Darrell, and this is a still from the imaginary 1969 biker movie, The Snakes Are the Devil. I promptly went to IMDb to search it out, but no such luck. I went back to his images, one of which was a lobby card. I noted that the lead actor's name, Jay Clenan, and returned to IMDb. No such actor exists. I couldn't find anything because there was no film. There was no actor. There was no anything. These images were another AI creation, and I had known that right from the start. And yet still, I hoped that somehow it was real. I'm still annoyed at Mr. Darrell for making me want what I cannot have. Here are more amazing images from Jodorowsky's Dune. That's how powerful it is to allow AI to generate pictures of films or other art objects you wish could exist. It's like watching a magic show. Going in, you know it will all be illusions and sleight of hand, but during the show, your suspension of disbelief kicks in. Your heart wants to believe it's real, and it gets your brain to go along for the ride. Life is more fun that way. What will it mean when directors, concept artists, and film students can see with their imaginations, when they can paint using all of the digitally archived visual material of human civilization? When our culture starts to be influenced by scenes, sets, and images from old films that never existed, or that haven't yet even been imagined? I have a feeling we're all going to find out. And here's the last image there of Jodorowsky's Tron. Now, here's the thing. As I'm looking at this, remember, I wanted to say this was a New York Times op-ed written by Frank Pavich, who directed the documentary Jodorowsky's Dune, which is interesting because Jodorowsky's Dune has a whole book that Jodorowsky himself developed with artwork and pages and pages, hundreds of pages of imagery. Now, that movie never got made either, but somebody Frank Pavich went and made a documentary about the making of that movie. It doesn't exist. So the question that I have for all of you is, let's say I wrote a plot outline for a movie. I really wanted to make it, and I couldn't get the money, couldn't raise the financing. So I have my script that I maybe used ChatGPT to write, but I have my script, and I start playing with an AI program. And let's say I made a photo novel they used to make these in the 70s, in the pre-home video era, where a book would be comprised of all these hundreds of stills from a movie or a TV show. There were Star Trek photo novels, and that how all the episodes, and well, actually they only made 12, but it was like looking at a comic book, but of photographs with thought bubbles and things like that. Well, what if people started making these things all the time, these movie mashups, and created what instead of a half dozen or a dozen or 2 dozen images from a movie, what if you got 400 of them, 400 of images, and put them all together and created a book and said Jodorowsky's Tron? Now, we know the movie doesn't exist, but the digital AI version of the potential film images do exist from that. And if you continued on and made more and more and more and released it in book form, does that mean then, and you'd have plenty of illustrations of what that movie would look like? I mean, it isn't a real movie, but can a movie be an imaginary film and still have the impact on culture? The imagery is there. The story you create, it's just, albeit in more of a novelized form. What does that mean for the entertainment business? Maybe there's going to be a whole, what if anybody who wanted to write a script, every failed screenwriter who thought they'd written the great American screenplay went back and used AI art to visualize the script that they had written and put it out? There might be times when you're a kid reading one of these books thinking, wow, I saw this movie. You might not even remember that it wasn't real, that you're looking at AI imagery. And I guarantee you there's going to be some film student in the next maybe 20, 25, 30 years who is studying Tron and all this, video game movies, whatever, and comes across Jodorowsky's Tron imagery and won't understand that it's not real. I think that's actually going to happen, if it hasn't happened already. And then where are we going to be as a culture? And the funny thing is, I don't know. I mean, I tweeted last week, I said, I think that the great currency of the 21st century is going to be authenticity, meaning to know you're talking to a real human being with a soul. But maybe that's not true. Maybe that's not what any of us want. Maybe we do want to live in a virtual world where anything is possible, where we're responsible for the creativity of the universe that we're living in. Maybe that's what everybody wants. Maybe nobody wants any art to be created that's out of their purview. And does any art matter when you can just create this via AI? What happens when you hook one of these things up to a paint machine where it can actually use oil paints and paint you a fresco. I'm sure that's coming. And the thing is, I don't know. I don't have an answer. This is just, hey, these are Robservations. These are just my musings. Although I do wonder, what are the ethics behind that? What if you, I hate to say it, but let's say you go and you want to be more nefarious about it, and you take a bunch of pictures of your high school girlfriend, and you have your own personal porn stash, AI porn stash made of your unrequited love or something like that. What are the ethics involved there? Or what if you want to imagine yourself, having slept with Grace Kelly in To Catch a Thief, and you wanted to generate a bunch of AI photos of that? You could do that too. And I think that human beings have a great capacity to you believe your own bullshit and make enough of these things, and I think it's going to be indistinguishable from what actually did get made. The more fake movie mashups you make, did you know that Steven Spielberg directed a Star Trek movie? Oh, he did. It's right here. Who's going to know that he didn't in 20 or 30 years without, really drilling deep down into his career? You just never know. And I think, does it matter? I think it does matter. But I don't know what we're going to do about it. I don't know how you put the genie back in the bottle. I really don't. And I wonder, what do you all think about this? Because I don't know what to think. I'm not scared by it. I'm more fascinated by it. I keep thinking about Wim Wenders' movie Until the End of the World, which Criterion put out the 5-hour version of it. In Until the End of the World, the machine is made that can record your dreams and you can play them back and watch them. Of course, it becomes very addictive. Who wouldn't want to watch their own subconscious? You'd learn things about yourself that you don't even know because it's coming right out of your subconscious. And I understand that. We already have a navel-gazing culture. We're on Instagram. We're the stars of our own reality shows. But what happens when all the great artwork now becomes self-generated notions that you conjure up out of thin air, and with a few keystrokes, you get your own art, customized art that was based on your idea? Where are we going to go then? I don't know. But here's the thing. I'm not necessarily, I don't think it's bad. I look at these images of Jodorowski's Tron and I know they're not real, but they're really cool. I enjoy looking at them, and I could use them as reference. I'd be like, you know what? I want to make a mid-70s dystopian sci-fi movie set in a computer that looks like this. The production design, the kind of thing you could just hand it to your production designer and they'd be off to the races. Here you go. Go build sets based on these pictures. It's insane. And I'm curious where it's all going to wind up and what we all think about it. I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, it's a very weird, interesting place to be. And to be honest, I don't know what it all means, but I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop thinking about Jodorowsky's Tron, and I can't stop thinking about all the movie mashups that I want to make. All the Stanley Kubrick movies he never got to make. Obviously, we have the big Tosh and Napoleon book they put out, so we know what his Napoleon movie might have looked like. But I mean, I want to take every movie I love. What if Stanley Kubrick directed The Social Network? It actually probably wouldn't have been much different from David Fincher's. But to take filmmakers, what would Russ Meyer's Fatal Attraction look like? Don't know, but I want to find out. I don't know what you all think. David Gonzalez sends in a super chat and says, AI takes the ideas of our past to create something yet unseen. It gives us the notion that even with technology, humanity can't help but create and have the soul of a poet. So is AI a machine, or in a way our traveling bard? A good question. The problem is AI can't yet generate things on its own. Meaning it's until AI can write its own prompts, what does that say about AI? What does that say about us? I see it right now. It's an exciting tool, and it's only in its infancy, and I think I've been saying that gaming technology is where movies were in the early 1920s, early to mid 1920s, and then the idea of sound took over in the late 20s. And my whole thing that I've been saying for a long time is, I think in our late 20s, the confluence of gaming technology and this kind of technology. What happens when you've got virtual reality or Unreal Engine 27 hooked up to this kind of virtual reality technology? Instantaneous creation for a human being to experience in virtual worlds or something. It could be astonishing. And that's why I think we're just at the very edge of a new revolution. What that revolution, what it's going to look like, where it's going to take us, no idea. But it is crazy, and it is amazing that we are able to do this. The Moon is a new member of this channel. Ron C. has been a member for 23 months. Thanks, Ron C. I appreciate that. King Tannic gifted a Burnettwork membership. Well, thank you, King Tannic. I very much appreciate that. I hope you are well. Cash says, it's honestly very concerning if you really put a lot of thought into how that's going to affect our psyche over time. Something just feels off about it. Well, I agree. What it's doing is it's replacing human imagination and creativity. That's one of the things it's doing. And it's pretty nuts where we're going to go and where it's all going to. I don't know. Kenneth Colton says, not sure if you have, but I would love to watch a stream with you just messing around with Chat GPT. Star Wars Theory did one, and it was pretty crazy. Well, that's not a bad idea. We could do that. Jeff Yerke, the Yerke man, Jeff Yerke and Mrs. Yerke are out there in the world. I can't wait to meet them. They're two of my. Isn't it funny to have favorite people you've never met? But the couple Yerke the couple, the Yerkes, the Yerke people, they're my kind of people, and one day I'm going to meet them. Eric sent in a tip and said, Rob, I'm a big fan and I love you and what you do. I heard some theory that Sam Wilson's Captain America and Ant-Man are Skrulls in the MCU. What are your thoughts on this? If this is true, holy sh... Well, first of all, I will refrain from answering the question because I've read the 6 Secret Invasion scripts, at least versions of them. I think they're pretty late versions. And I have no comment. But I will say, I really like the Secret Invasion scripts. Just saying that. Todd Michael Januszewski says, do you want a Butlerian jihad? This is how you get a Butlerian jihad. What Todd is referring to, the Butlerian jihad is basically led to the elimination of all machines that are created in the to be like the human mind, to work like the human mind, and that's why in the Dune universe there are no computers. They were all gotten rid of in the Butlerian jihad, and according to some of the other Dune books that Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert wrote, well, I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't read those books, but it is interesting. But yeah, this is how you get to there, and we're going to get there. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. But yes. Stubble McShave sends in a tip. And Stubble says, you mentioned romanticism on the chat today, and I brought it up earlier. I think that I will write a letter on the subject. I think we need romanticism in our storytelling, especially when the world seems grim. We need the escapism when the world is grim. I agree. I am with you 100%. So, yeah, as I said, I am with you there, Stubble. We do need more romanticism in the world today. Now, on another note, I wanted to share something with you. There is a movie at Sundance that I read. Ryan Latanazio writes on IndieWire today about a movie. We've often talked on this channel about erotic thrillers and how romanticism and true eroticism are kind of gone from our movie screens. But let me read you this review, because this, my friends, sounds like my kind of movie and your kind of movie too. The movie's called Fair Play. And Phoebe Denevor and Alden Ehrenreich, Han Solo himself, shared depraved chemistry in Chloe Damont's debut that's about to go off like a bomb. Here's the review. All is not fair in love and war and finance. In fact, it's ugly, cruel, sexy, and trashy. Writer-director Chloe Damont's vicious assault on ambition, attraction, masculinity, and you go girl feminism, Fair Play, goes off like a bomb laced with an explosive and duly depraved chemistry of leads Phoebe Denevor and Alden Ehrenreich. They play a New York couple who can't keep their hands off each other. They both work in finance. They also happen to work at the same investment firm, yet none of their colleagues knows about their elaborate and long-standing violation of company policy. What starts as one movie on the surface, a sort of refresh on the psychosexual thrillers of the 1980s, spearheaded by the likes of Adrian Lyne, and since all but dead in Hollywood, then slithers into another perhaps more reminiscent of HBO's finance episodic Industry, then another, then another. By the final jaw-dislocating cut to black, you'll have no idea what just thwacked you. When we first meet Emily and Luke, they're at a wedding of his relatives and decide to sneak off to the bathroom to discreetly fuck. Here's something you've probably never seen before in a mainstream American movie. After Luke goes down on Emily and passionately kisses her, they both realize she's on her period, and suddenly their formal wear is slathered in menstrual blood. We look like we slaughtered a chicken. But there's more. An engagement ring has fallen out of Luke's pocket, and so he gets down on his knees, slathered in her blood, and asks her to marry him. She says, of course, I do. That's just the beginning of Emily and Luke's fucked up odyssey, and it sets the stage for the twisted relationship arc that follows, and even for a much later scene also set in a bathroom during the movie's cracked coda. If you don't have a head for finance, the heady machinations of a cutthroat financial firm may leave you in the cold, but no matter, stay for the loopy power games between Emily and Luke. They're both analysts at Crest Capital, ensconced in a gleaming, glassy financial district Manhattan high-rise that's mainly a boys' club, but one where grown men cry. During a mandatory workplace conduct training session, one poor analyst who seemingly lost the company millions has a breakdown in the next office, wailing into the void as he destroys his computer and desk with a golf club. So much for his certificate of compliance. Anyway, the review goes on from there, but let me tell you, that sounds like my kind of movie. Anyway, I'm excited. Kenneth Colton says, not sure if you have, but I would, I already said that. Love watching a stream when you mess around with GPT. Attic Hatch Sound, Bob Kowal, Mr. Halloween himself says, for a while, writing and originality will become more of a premium. I predict original artistic writing will be the last thing to convincingly emulate. I'm telling you, I think that true authenticity, human authenticity, is going to be a big currency in the 21st century. I keep tweeting that. Revan Suarez says, have you dabbled with the Darth Bane trilogy? Would it work better as a series or a movie trilogy? I have not. That's a good question. I don't know. Tom Jr. Jackson says, you could see Free Enterprise 2 done by AI. Great member call, too. Thanks, man. Also, check out Frank Sinazzi on YouTube. Your jaw will drop and you will laugh. I'll have to check that out. Frank Sinazzi. I'll do that. We did write Free Enterprise 2. So we have the script. So there you go. Football Frequency sends in a super chat and says, the time to use AI as a filmmaker is now. I can storyboard in the same, say, 1:33:1 as the shot in 4K color while having limited sketching skills. Not even the digital camera was this revolutionary. Dude, I am right there with you. I think it's amazing. I don't even know what to say. It's absolutely astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. Paul in Long Beach sends in a tip and says, Delusion, eldest daughter of Zeus who blinds us all, damn her. She never touches the ground with those soft feet of hers, but flits over men's heads, corrupting them and shackling one man after another. That's from the Iliad. Ooh, that's good, Paul. I like that. Tanya says, what happened to the 2 new hosts on the Campia show? John made a big deal about it, and they lasted like 2 weeks, which always seems to happen. He should just stick with industry insiders who have deep knowledge of the movie and TV business. Well, he tried to bring on them, Alu and Kaylee. The problem was that they were both working actresses, and they couldn't commit to a steady schedule. I like them both. I thought they were nice, but I agree with you. I think that John's always trying to improve the show and make the viewer experience better. So he's not adverse to trying all different kinds of things out. But I agree with you. It's too bad that they didn't work out, but they just couldn't keep a steady schedule, and that drives John crazy. So, Richard says those articles' writers deserve to have AI replace them. Sheesh. Also, that kind of AI has been around for years. What do you think Google search is? Well, it's true. Also, ChatGPT isn't familiar with the structure of a scene and doesn't understand dialogue's relationship with subtext. Maybe it could be trained after a few prompts, but it gets a little obstinate after a while. I agree, but this is just the very beginnings of all of this. Wait till it goes even further. Subtext and all that will come. This is just the beginning. Richard goes on to say, what do you think it is about the prequel films that make them convincing as Star Wars films, but the sequel films are not convincing, especially when Lucas considers them personal failures and the end of his film career? Does Lucasfilm? I'm not sure Lucas considers the prequels personal failures. Look, I think that there's one thing, is that the Star Wars prequels were co-written and directed by George Lucas, the man who created Star Wars. They're the creators. My problem with the sequel trilogy is none of it feels authentic. It feels like movies that were made because a corporation bought them, which they did, and they needed to put out product to justify their investment. They don't feel of a piece. I feel all 3 Disney sequel Skywalker saga films, I go back to the idea of fraudulent creators. They were made by people. See, the thing about taking on a franchise is, in my mind, the franchise, if you think about the Skywalker saga as a family saga, they're a failure, because they're no longer about the Skywalkers. And you can't say that when Rey takes the name Rey Skywalker at the end of Rise of Skywalker, that wasn't earned. She didn't have that name bequeathed upon her. She just took it because she, I guess, decided to. And I think that that's wrong-headed. Yeah, my problem with those movies is they're not really about anything. You go back and you look at Empire Strikes Back, and the whole idea of Luke's conversion into a Jedi is fascinating. And, even now, decades later, it might be trite, but look at me, judge me by my size, do you? I think about that all the time. Maybe because I saw The Empire Strikes Back 26 times in the theater, but it still resonates with me. When Luke thinks something is too hard and he can't do it. That is why you fail. I mean, there's lessons to be learned there that George Lucas didn't direct that movie, but he oversaw it, just like he really kind of co-directed Return of the Jedi. But I do think that the problem with the Star Wars sequel trilogy is it's really ultimately not about anything. And you can transpose meaning on it. You can say, well, it's about this or it's about that. But is it? I feel like those movies jump around, and by the time you get to Rise of Skywalker, it's not really about anything at all. So, let's see. Richard says, you could tell that Lucas considers them less than satisfactory because of his press comments and his radical shift of tone throughout the movie. He wanted to turn Star Wars into a children's franchise, which was probably the right call. Here's what I think about Star Wars. I've said it a lot. It's not any kind of revelatory thing. I think George Lucas wanted to make a space saga, but he never really had a handle on all of it. He had all these things that he wanted to draw upon, and he had the original Flash Gordon concept that he tried to get the rights to, and he wrote the script, but even the script was sort of nebulous. And all of his collaborators all contributed in ways that lifted the material above what was on the page and turned it into something else. And Star Wars was a movie where all the creative elements to it, the editorial and costume design and visual effects and all of these things were created by a bunch of artists that synergistically worked together. I mean, George Lucas oversaw everything, and he looked at what he liked and picked out the things that he saw, but it really was a truly collaborative effort. And that finished film represents something that is both more and less than George Lucas. I'm talking about the original Star Wars now. And I think once Star Wars was created, it was not just a children's fantasy anymore. It was a fantasy for everybody, for the child and everyone. And the fact that it caught on and became a cultural phenomenon was something that Lucas might not have expected. And I think what's interesting to me about the prequel trilogy, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith, the thing about those movies is there's no humanity in them. Because he was using all this digital technology, the characters don't feel real. Every line of dialogue in all three of those movies is incredibly stilted. You don't believe, there's not one scene in that film where human beings are exchanging dialogue with each other that sounds credible at all. It's all constructed. It feels like it was made entirely by AI. And in a way, Lucas was dipping into scenes, and he was combining, because he could with digital technology, mashing scenes together. So another problem with the prequel trilogy is nothing feels real. The character interplay, none of that feels real. So it just doesn't work. Unfortunately, I don't think so. 200 Watt Studio says, how do you deal with people that scoff when they find out you have a physical media collection? They treat you like an ignorant and backwater hoarder. Do they? I mean, maybe. I collect movies because, as I was saying today, like I showed this last week, I bought this last week, this Invaders from Mars disc, this 1950s alien invasion movie that turns out to be a child's nightmare that becomes real in the end. I love this movie when I was a kid. I love this 4K restoration is absolutely stunning. I don't know how many places, how many venues you're going to be able to see this. And the question you might ask is, how many times are you even going to watch it? Maybe once or twice, but it'll exist. It'll exist somewhere. And I really am concerned. I think much of our cinematic legacy is going to be lost because so many of these lesser movies that nobody knows about are going to fall into obscurity, and then they're going to disappear. Now, some people could say philosophically that, well, maybe that's okay then. Maybe they really didn't matter, and maybe the transitory nature of these films is something that history is going to bear out that we don't need. Maybe in the 22nd, 23rd, 24th centuries, if we make it that far, movies will be a thing of the past that nobody pays much attention to. But I do think that movies were the great art form of the 20th century, and they did last, and they're still here. You know, we're into our second century of movies, so maybe they'll mean something. And I think that collecting them and at least doing your part to make sure that they're vibrant, at least while I'm still here, I can still watch my movies and enjoy them and be inspired by them, and it'll make me want to create more art. King Tannic said, sad I missed the member chat. Yeah, we missed you too. Hopefully you'll invite guests on Musings tonight if we get a chance to chat. Where do I get a list of the best films from every decade? I want to grow my film repertoire. Well, you know what's great? I mean, the AFI Top 100 list, but I always punch in to find stuff. I'll just punch in Top 100 movies of the 1940s, and it'll give you information from the IMDb and all over the place, and you can just start from there. Let's see. Adam Pereira. Is it Pereira? I hope I got that okay. Hi, Rob. As a fellow physical media fan, do you have a premium player or something standard, such as a PS5? I've been looking into high-end 4K players and wondering whether that extra 10% is worth it. Adam, I have 2 dedicated 4K disc players, and I have a Xbox X and a PlayStation 5. The problem with the PlayStation 5, it doesn't support Dolby Vision. I have a Panasonic and a Sony. I have a Sony multi-region player. It's a great player, but it's so cheap. It's made cheap. And then I have a $500 Panasonic player. It really depends. I mean, I have a 7.1 Dolby Atmos system, which I can add speakers to. It's 1122. It's an 1122 system. But the problem is I don't have the room it's in small. It sounds incredible for the room that it's in. But I can't, if I added more speakers, it would just be mud. There would be too many speakers and the music, the sound would just be muddy. But my amplifier, my Pioneer Elite stuff, I could add a second subwoofer, which I thought about doing. I might add a second subwoofer. I can add a second subwoofer. I can add 2 more Atmos channels, and I can add 2 more surround channels. Maybe 3, because I have to check. But right now I just have 8 speakers hooked up to my system. But it's great. Kenneth Colton says, AI and technology are entering a new era. I think about the show Altered Carbon, stacks implanted in the spine that make you immortal, body implants and enhancements. The future sounds wild. I think you're not wrong. I do. I think that that's going to happen. I mean, medical technology and biotechnology is going to be what revolutionizes humanity, really. 200 Watt Studio says, oh, I get what you're saying. 200 Watt Studio says, I'm speaking from recent experience. I have a big collection, but I'm paring it down and curating it more. You know what, dude? I totally agree with you. I mean, I'll still buy, because I have a soft spot for 50s classic science fiction movies, but there really aren't that many of them that I love. You know, I could probably count them. There's probably 20 in all of the 50s that I love. You know, obviously Conquest of Space and Destination Moon and Forbidden Planet and Day the Earth Stood Still and When Worlds Collide and War of the Worlds, Invaders from Mars, Them. You know, there's not that many. And then the kaiju films of the 50s. So I do collect those, but you're right. Curating movies, I mean, I have a lot of, to be honest, I have a lot of crap. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I have a lot of crap. But I want to curate it more too, because look, I've often joked that I wanted to get my collection down to 2,500 movies. And it's funny, when I tried to do that, I'm like, nah, I don't want to get rid of this. So maybe 3,500 movies, and then I'll stop. So, yeah, I don't know. Cash says, unfortunately, with a lot of mental health issues being tied to our tech use and on the rise, it's more concerning how the AI will be used. That's actually a really, really good point. I mean, again, we are in an evolutionary period. You know, we're always going to be transhuman. Somehow we're going to have our biology integrated to our technology at some point, whether we're swallowing nanobots or something. But yeah, our mental health is, we are absolutely suffering as people. But that was inevitable. We were going to go through this. This was going to be, at some point, it was going to be a problem. I think also what's a real problem is technology has turned us we're basically looking at ourselves. It's like looking in the mirror, and I think our technological advancement on the whole has made us a bunch of raging narcissists. But that too will pass. That's all part of the evolutionary process. But I think you're right. I mean, we don't know how I think AI is going to make people really depressed. I think if you're an artist that's been training all your life, you're going to find out that that this, what do you do? How do you when you spend weeks creating production art or something, and then an AI can just come along and do it quickly? I mean, that's got to be pretty damn depressing. Cash says, just letting you know you skipped my last super chat. I'm kind of jumping around, so I've got everybody's in front of me. So if I missed yours or skipped it, I will jump back to it. Roberto Suarez says, sorry I'm late, Rob. I just shared with you via Facebook Messenger the images Elon shared with us that he made on AI earlier today, in case you wanted to share them on the show. Oh, absolutely. Why don't I do that? I will go grab them and share them on the show, because let's see, since you sent them to me on Messenger. Oh yeah, okay. Now, so Elon, one of our members, who's a great guy, he, during our show, made images. Let's see if there's more. I mean, these are incredible. He made images. These images he made during our member chat today, and I mean, this is kind of amazing if you think about it. So I've got them. Let me just punch them up here. And again, a member did this. Elon did this during our member chat today, and he created these images. And this was just done he did these on AI. The first of these here is what AI said Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek might look like. These are images of what Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek might look like. I mean, wow. I don't know what we're looking at here, but they look Star Trekian to me, and Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek. Now, this is even more impressive. So we were discussing today, obviously, I coined the phrase imagination connoisseurs. I was looking for something other than geek or nerd, something that I liked to say that I thought would be cool. And so I came up with the title Imagination Connoisseurs, just, for my own edification. So just for fun, I put into Chat GPT, what is an imagination connoisseur? I asked. This is what Chat GPT, after asking what an imagination connoisseur was, here is what Chat GPT, what AI told me it was today. An imagination connoisseur is someone who has a refined understanding and appreciation of the use of imagination, often in the context of creative pursuits such as art, literature, and design. They may be experts in identifying and analyzing the imaginative elements in a piece of work and have a deep understanding of the various techniques and styles used to evoke imagination in others. They are also known to have highly developed imagination skills. I mean, that's pretty incredible in terms of what an imagination connoisseur is. I mean, that's amazing. And now Elon also asked, I don't know if he was using Midjourney or what program he was using, but he said to the AI art program, show us what an imagination connoisseur is. And this is what he got back. I mean, it's interesting that it focused on children, but I mean, when we're going to publish the Imagination Connoisseur's book later in the year that our viewers are going to submit to, these could be great covers. I mean, I'm not going to use them because I know who I want to have do the cover, but this is stunning. It's stunning. And again, whether you're going to use these or not, I would say these images are very evocative. And I think that they did a fine job of delving into what AI is capable of. Jeff Yerke comes back and says, Columbo aside, Peter Falk always said that one of the key reasons the character works so well is that he always treated his suspects with the greatest respect. I love that. That's a great idea. It's a great idea. It's true. And thanks to Tom Jr. Jackson, I now have the entire Columbo series on DVD. So thank you again. Jared Snyder makes a great point. Hi, Rob. Warhol's Campbell soup cans and portraits and endless resampling of music and beats seem to have already brought us to art as repurposed old ideas. I think that's different, though, than this because, even with beats or sampled riffs, they're still using those sampled riffs kind of in the way that they were intended to be used. If you need like in hip hop songs, you need a guitar riff or something. But yeah, like if you think about some of Wu-Tang Clan's use of movie quotes and Eric B. and Rakim's stuff, some of my favorite hip hop samples a lot of things, but I think that overall they're creating something new as well. They're using ideas, but the thing about AI is this AI artwork is, rap songs still have to be hip hop songs. Your lyrical flow is still real. It's a human being writing those raps. As a matter of fact, hang on a second. Somebody suggested maybe I should go into Chat GPT and open it up and we can have some fun. For those of you, I'm sure all of you who are watching this right now, you probably tried Chat GPT, but let's do it together. I've done this once before, so why don't I try and we'll have a little Chat GPT cooking. And here, let me call it up here, and we'll see what we can see. I'm looking for. It's not showing me. OpenAI. How come it's not showing me that? I don't know why. I'm trying to call it up maybe because I have too many things open. Yeah, I can't. I don't know why it's not. Well, I can do it live. You can't see it, but here I'll do this. I'll type into Chat GPT, write me a rap, since we're talking about rap, about imagination connoisseurs. So here we go. Here's Chat GPT. Wow. Okay. Oh my God. I got to figure out a way to get you. This is insane. Okay. All I put into Chat GPT was write me a rap about imagination connoisseurs. And it's still writing it, by the way. Here's verse 1. Imagination connoisseurs, we paint with words and thoughts. Our mind's a canvas, creating words that never... Oh, wait, I don't think this really rhymes. Let me just read this. I can't rap this because I've never read this before. Imagination connoisseurs, we paint with words and thoughts. Our mind's a canvas, creating worlds that never were. We dream in technicolor, our thoughts a work of art. We bring ideas to life, like a symphony in our heart. Here's the chorus. We are the imagination connoisseurs. We bring ideas to life. That's our allure. We see beyond the present to a future bright. We are the dreamers, the ones who make things right. We're not afraid to think outside the box. We break the mold and make our own locks. We see potential in every situation. We bring new perspectives, like a revelation. Chorus, we are the imagination connoisseurs. We bring ideas to life. That's our allure. We see beyond the present to a future bright. We are the dreamers, the ones who make things right. Verse 3, We're not limited by what's already been done. We're always pushing to see what can be won. We're the architects of a better tomorrow. We're the ones who make the world a better place to borrow. And then the outro is, we're the imagination connoisseurs. We bring new life to words. We're the ones who make the impossible possible. We're the ones who see beyond to a brighter future. We're the ones who make the world a better place. That's our culture. Okay. That's fucking terrifying. Let me just say that is pretty scary. But there you go. There's the imagination connoisseur rap as written by Chat GPT. I'm going to put this on my Facebook page. I don't even know what to say to that. Wow. Just wow. Jeez, that's terrifying. Richard says, an AI giveaway is the fingers. This is probably because people's fingers are often obscured in the pictures. It crawls. Also, would Stanley Kubrick's AI show a dark version of Spielberg's AI or his actual AI, more maudlin than Spielberg's? I don't know. Was it more maudlin than Spielberg's? I don't know about that. Let's see. Joel Rolston says, Rob, I didn't want to fully believe you about physical media dying until I was Christmas shopping in Best Buy and Target this year. I'm now concerned pirating will keep physical media alive. Thoughts? It might. Look, the fact is that we've been losing physical media 20 to 25% a year. What it's getting down to, though, is boutique companies. It's going to the way of where Laserdiscs used to be. So, I mean, I think we're always going to have it, at least for a while. I would give it 10 years on the outside. But, yeah, it's going away. The problem is people want to collect. People that love movies, connoisseurs, collect. You know, they want their stuff. You know, and as I said, it's like, even though I bought Casablanca, I couldn't resist, you know, this beautiful box set of Casablanca with, it's got a steelbook inside and swag. I mean, by the way, but this is, I've bought Casablanca on VHS, on Laserdisc, on DVD, on Blu-ray, and now I have it in 4K where physical media will go to die. So I never have to buy this again. How many times have I watched Casablanca in my life? Even though I've owned it, I've gone and seen it in the theater. I watched this disc 2 weeks ago. So who knows? Should I have it? But physical media is dying. The thing is, I'm not worried so much about physical media dying as I am about obscure most of our cinematic legacy. Once it's put on streaming, the analytics will show, well, which movies are getting watched. But the problem is the movies that are going to have the biggest audience are the movies that people already know. So that's basically kind of what you're fighting, I think. And that's what I don't want to lose. Like, what happens when, you know, people say, well, this movie is offensive. I watched this movie and it was full. Like, you still can't get Ken Russell's The Devils because certain groups or certain people find it offensive. And I think, you know, art is art. You should allow these things. Bad ideas should be brought out into the light. I would say that while I don't recommend necessarily having it, or people watch it, but like, I own the movie A Serbian Film, and that's what it's called. It's called A Serbian Film. It's one of the more offensive things I've seen in my life, and I've seen a lot of offensive movies from all around the world, but it's truly offensive. And there are things in it that I would never want to show people that I know. There are other people, friends of mine, I'm like, have you seen this shit? But I own it. I don't think that movie, I mean, it was a response. The director said maybe. I mean, he did say this, but he said it was what, to him, it was a metaphor for what happened to his homeland because of the Balkan conflict. The conflict in the Balkans. Whether you believe that or not, that's what he said. Would that movie survive? Is somebody going to put that streaming? I mean, I would love to have the exploitation channel. If I was a billionaire investor, I would buy, like, I've dreamed, if I ever like if I earned if I made $1 billion or something, I would start probably in New York because or someplace, USC, NYU. I would endow wherever with $50 million or $100 million, however much it would cost. I would want to start a genre studies program that science fiction, fantasy, horror, thrillers, blaxploitation, whatever your favorite genre is, a genre studies program, and it would be a repository to get all of these movies and get the best versions of them and preserve them for posterity. Because I think that they're not going to survive. A lot of films are not going to survive 100 years from now, which would be a bummer. But that's why physical media, I like it. Wraith X7 says, I've recorded my favorite animated series on VHS from the TV and have transferred them to DVD because they're hard to find and uncut. Exactly. And basically DVD was NTSC resolution. It was better than VHS, but you have them. Bert says, finally using Mid-Journey thanks to this stream. I second the idea of you using an AI art tool live on stream. Musk has Neuralink for brain implants. I know. I know. It's crazy. At a catch sound, Bob Quall says, one day film historians will be desperate to find collections like the Burnett archives. Well, it's interesting because it is my particular interests. You know, there's a lot of, and my film interests are pretty wide ranging. The one thing people would be surprised, I think, not to find a lot of is comedies. The comedies I like are very specific kinds of comedies. I really like character-based comedies, like some of my favorite comedies, like Tootsie or Arthur, modern comedies like that. And I love farces and things, but I don't have a lot of, I don't know what that means, but I don't have a lot of comedies in my collection. Matouine says, a fan from the Star Trek The Next Conversation podcast asked ChatGPT what is the first duty of all Starfleet officers. It didn't agree that their first duty is to the truth, i.e. what Picard said in TNG. Well, here's the thing. Nobody said that ChatGPT is accurate. It frequently, when it comes to facts and figures, it is inaccurate. So, we have to watch out for that. By the way, one of the things that ChatGPT does, it'll give you an answer, and then it'll say at the bottom there's a prompt that says regenerate response. So I'm going to regenerate the response, the write me a rap about imagination connoisseurs. I'm going to regenerate the response and see what it says. This is pretty good. Imagination connoisseurs were the ones to see. Our minds are like gardens full of creativity. We paint with words, we sculpt with thought. We're the ones that keep the game hot. The chorus is, we're the masters of our own reality. We know the power of our own ability. Imagination connoisseurs, we're the ones to know. Our minds are the ultimate show. We take our thoughts and make them real. We don't need no blueprints, no deal. Our ideas, they're like gold. They're worth their weight. And we're the ones that bring new life to the plate. We're the ones that push the boundaries. We're the ones that make history. We're the ones that make the change. We're the ones that rearrange. We're the masters of our own reality. This is so hilarious, man. I'm telling you, this is everyone should get on ChatGPT because it's very interesting. I'm going to save this. I'm going to keep this around here so we don't lose this because it's pretty funny. Craziness. So there you go. I mean, this is nutty. Where are we going to go with all this? Where do we go now? I don't know. I don't know where we're going to go. But it's pretty crazy where we're going, I'll tell you that. Richard goes on to say, regarding physical media, M discs are a good storage media that can withstand a lot of heat, cold, and water exposure. You never know if the odd storm or cold snap might destroy that cheap dye in your DVD or Blu-ray. It's true. That is true. You got to see if you can preserve your stuff. The thing that I worry about more than my collection of discs is getting something to play on them. I feel that I should buy a few premium. There's a $1,500 player that I want, and a $3,000 player that I want. I feel I should put the money aside, buy those players, and keep them for a rainy day. But yeah, it's pretty crazy out there. Wraith X7 says, Rob, I think that it would be a good idea to also transfer physical media to flash drives and hard drives. I think so too. The problem with that is what happens in 20 years. I mean, I think about like where I'm going to be in 25 years. I'll be very old in 25 years. So it's like I have CDs that I bought in 1983 that still work. They're 40 years old now. And they work. And that, to me, that's a pretty good run, And then now I can burn those 40-year-old CDs into files and just keep them. And I think that's pretty good. I think that's pretty good. So, who knows? And on that note, kids, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, fine people, fine human beings, all of you. I'm going to, King Tannic says, are you wow. King Tannic says, are you going to see Left Behind: Rise of the Antichrist? I'm a Christian, and even I can't wait to see this dumpster fire as I laugh the entire time. I'll watch anything the devil. You show me an Antichrist devil movie, and I will watch it. Anything to do with the devil, cults, any of that stuff. The devil's one of my favorite villains. I'll watch anything with the Antichrist or the devil. I didn't know they were coming out with that. Is Nicolas Cage in that? Because I'll watch it. And on that note, everyone, I'm going to end this stream. We will be back for Midnight Musings at 9 o'clock with Lael and so I invite you all to come back to that. We're going to talk about all the upcoming pop culture. But I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank all the people that become members of this channel and that gift other members. Thank you so much for that. We had a good member chat this week. Obviously, we do member chats every 2 weeks. And I'm going to start dropping new small videos that are going to be members-only videos at first before I make them live. And they're going to be 10 and 10. So I'm going to make 10-minute videos that have lists of my favorite things, like my 10 favorite first season Star Trek episodes. And I'll take you through all those things, and it'll be fun. And tomorrow, speaking of physical media, I'll be back with Dieter Bastian tomorrow, your favorite German, all the way from Saarbrücken, Deutschland. And we will talk about the week in physical media that was. I want to thank my moderators. I want to thank Tom Jr. Jackson, the Goof Emeritus, who came up with the phrase, "We're all goof people." Even though he didn't know he was coming up with it, he still did. Doesn't make it not real. Science Beat says that Chat GPT has difficulty doing limericks. With that, it'll probably put one in and generate one. You'll probably put one in and it'll generate one. That's interesting. Should we put that to the test? Let's see. Do I have Chat GPT still open? Well, I already have this thing I want to save on it, so I'll have to test that out later. But on that note, this is a fun show, everybody. Thanks for making it a fun show. And we'll end it here. Remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I say to all of you, well, first of all of you, check out Midjourney and check out ChatGPT. Start playing with it and see what you can make out of it. And send it to me. We'll talk soon. Have a better day.